Okay, so I've been getting this question pretty often, and it's basically, people asking me how do you go from having no experience in marketing and landing a job that pays over 100,000? And I'm gonna explain a bit more about how I done this. Like I said, I didn't have any experience. I didn't go to uni, and you don't actually have to go to uni. So yeah, let me just go through my history. So in 2019. I basically dropped out of uni. I had some health issues and I wasn't able to actually finish. So at the time, I basically, I had no qualifications, right? So I was looking at some of the jobs that were available at the time, and I was kind of exploring my options. So I looked at things like graphic design, website development, digital marketing, and I was actually getting a lot of pressure from family, just to find a job. At the time, I was working in hospitality. I was working basically customer service, waiting, that type of thing. And I was interested in graphic design, so I took a basic course on Udemy, and I basically, I made some graphic design on Canva. I done like, some small projects here and there, and I basically just done that just so that I can have something to show, as a portfolio. So I basically made that portfolio and added it to my resume, and I started to apply to a lot of graphic design jobs. Now, I did land a few interviews with no graphic design experience, but uh, I wasn't able to actually get any jobs in graphic design because there were a lot more people that were more experienced. And compared to me, I didn't have any experience, and I was just making these projects inside Canva, and I wasn't able to land any jobs. So after I tried graphic design, I thought, graphic design, it's a fun career, I guess, but it's not in high demand. And when I compared, the amount of graphic design jobs to digital marketing jobs, there was way more digital marketing jobs. There was way more. So I thought, oh yeah, and by the way, I also started looking at web development jobs as well, and there were actually a lot of these web development jobs too. So web development and digital marketing at the time were in very high demand. So I decided to do a web development course briefly. I only did like a few modules, but I found it too long and complicated. Web development is quite complicated. It's things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You have to learn how to code, and at the time it just seemed very complicated for me. So I didn't decide to pursue that, and I decided that it would be better for me to do digital marketing because I've always had an interest in things like advertising, branding, social media, etc. And I've actually always been interested in like making videos, things like advertising. I always found that stuff interesting. So I basically just started applying to digital marketing jobs that I could find online, and actually landed an entry level job because it was in such high demand at the time. So this was in 2020, and this was just about the time when COVID started. And you got to remember when COVID started, basically everyone had to stay inside the house, and they had to, they couldn't go outside, so they had to spend all their time on their phones and computers. So at the time, digital marketing was in very, very high demand. And to be honest, even nowadays, it's still in very high demand. And I would kind of argue that nowadays, even though COVID has basically finished, like it's been over 3 years since COVID, people are still living in the same way that they were living during, all the lockdowns and when COVID was really at its peak. So even nowadays, it's still in very high demand, I would say. But at the time, it was in very high demand. And so basically, I was able to find an entry level position. And even though I didn't have any major experience, I only had some brief, projects from graphic design and from website design, video editing, that type of thing. But I added that experience onto my resume. And basically, I was able to land a job. And I worked that job for a few years. And that job, I basically learned on the job. So I learned things like SEO, WordPress, WordPress is basically the software that you use to build websites, but I learned SEO, I learned WordPress, social media, which I already kind of knew already. Being someone in who's kind of young, everyone grows up using social media, so I already knew that. Paid advertising, marketing funnels, and the basic marketing principles. So this was in 2020. And during this time, while I was working, I was continuing to build my skills, my resume, and most important of all, my portfolio. So I think everyone should have a portfolio when it comes to applying to jobs, and it's something that really sets you apart from all the other job applicants. If you have a strong portfolio, you can show people that, and you can basically have proof that you can do the job. You have proof that you can actually do what you say you can actually do. So basically, I use that to highlight my technical skills when it comes to reporting and analytics. And I guess at this time, I've already had about 1 year of experience. And even though I had experience, I didn't have any actual formal qualifications. So I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I didn't go to uni for this, but I basically had the experience. I just didn't have the qualifications. So what I did was I worked to get some certifications, and I got a certificate from TAFE as well. For those that are not in Australia, people in the US or maybe in the United Kingdom, TAFE is basically like a community college. So it's not the same as university. It's kind of like an associate's degree. It's a qualification, but it's not something that's considered as high as a bachelor's degree. But that's basically what I did at the time, and then I applied for a job as a digital marketing manager as well. And then I landed that job, and that was it. So basically, all I did was I got on-job experience, even though it was an entry-level job. I got that experience. I built my portfolio. I learned to actually do digital marketing. Things like SEO, reporting, analytics, all that stuff, basically. And then I got certifications as well, because certifications, they really help to establish credibility. So it's kind of like riding a bicycle. In order to do it, you can't learn it just by watching videos and reading books, and actually reading it. You have to actually do it. So once you actually do it, you build more confidence, and then you can actually feel like when it comes to interviews or actually working in a job, that's how you actually develop your confidence. So the only way to learn it is to do it. And so, what are some certifications that you can get? Well, it depends on what field you're interested in. If you're interested in SEO, then there's a lot of qualifications that certifications you can get for SEO. Some of them, I think it's from there's the one from SEMrush. There's actually a lot of them from SEMrush. So for those who don't know, SEMrush is basically SEO software, but they basically provide certifications when it comes to SEO. So for analytics, Google Ads, Facebook, and yeah, there's a lot of different certifications you can get. I just try to get as many as I can, and you don't have to get every single qualification certification, but it helps. It helps a lot. So that's what I did. I tried to get as many as I could that I thought were relevant to the jobs that I was applying for. And what usually happens is when you go to the job description, they tell you what they need. So they might say they need someone who can do analytics, someone who can do SEO, Google Ads, whatever it is. You just get the ones that are relevant. Okay, so you have to understand the other thing about the job market is that the job market is a competition, just like any other market. Whether it's a business market or whether it's a dating market, everything it's a competition. So the better you are, and the better you can display your skills and professionalism, the better offers you'll get. And you have to think about it like this, right? There are many people that apply for jobs every year, and most of them don't make it because they don't really put much effort into their resume or getting certificates or actually doing the work, learning hard things like analytics and email automation. So you have to kind of, just to illustrate this point a bit further, you have to understand the basic economics, basic supply and demand. Okay, think about it like this: why are easy jobs, for example, customer service, cleaning, labor, these would be considered very easy jobs? Why are these jobs paid minimum wage? And now ask yourself, why are hard jobs? Think about all the hard jobs that exist. Jobs in like finance, engineers, surgeons, managers. These are the jobs that are paid the most. And the reason is because most people cannot be surgeons or managers. So these jobs are in little supply, but they're in very high demand. Whereas most people can work in customer service and cleaning. So these jobs are in high supply, and at the same time they're in high demand. So a good analogy is, this is basically how value works. The hard jobs, doctors, engineers, surgeons, managers, these are seen as rare diamonds because they're highly needed, but there aren't that many people. There aren't that many doctors, or there aren't that many engineers and surgeons and managers. So people are willing to pay more for these type of jobs because they're in very high demand, but there's not that many people that can do these jobs. Then if you look at how, the easy jobs like customer service and cleaning, these are basically rocks. They're needed, and there's so many of these people, there's so many people that can do these jobs that they can be so easily replaced. So, people they're not willing to pay when they can find people that can do it for cheaper, or even, not even for cheaper, but they can just find someone that can do it easily. So the way this works is that you also have to consider the fact that people value their health. So this would be for, jobs like surgeons and doctors. But if you compare businesses that actually value things like customer service, or houses that actually value cleaning, people are willing to pay a lot of money for their health compared to customer service or cleaning. People don't really, obviously they value it, but they don't value it as much as, potentially staying alive. And that's what doctors and surgeons are for. With businesses, they're willing to pay a lot to multiply their profits. For example, if a business had to pay $10,000 in order to make $20,000, they would do it because it makes sense to do that, and that's why marketing is in demand. So so basically, the point here is that you should do the hard things that most people can't do, because especially the things that are in demand, because if you think about it, in order to make an above average salary, you cannot do average things. So just another point on job criteria. I would say about 80% of job criteria is useless. It's so many jobs, they'll say they need someone that has 5 years of experience, or they need skills in HTML and CSS, but most of these are just optional. They're not mandatory for the job that you apply for. So, in fact, I would say about 80% of the job description criteria is not even part of the actual job. So, and there's been cases where I've applied for jobs that need 4 years of experience when I've only had about 1 to 2 years of experience, and I've still landed interviews. And jobs as well. So the point here is just to apply anyway, as long as you know you can do the job, and just apply anyway. Just do it. And it might feel scary when you try to apply and you don't think you have the experience, but just know that, if you can pass the interview, you land a job, you can basically learn everything on the job. And the other thing is that most jobs have training, and with new software coming out, you're basically learning on the job anyways. If you think about digital marketing, it's a very new and upcoming industry. So you aren't really expected to know everything anyways. And there's always new stuff that's coming out. And finally, where are the places that you can look for jobs? Well, obviously LinkedIn, Seek, Indeed. There's a lot of options. You just have to explore your network, and just look in as many places as you can look for. So yeah.